Today I want to talk about Broodmother Skyfortress by Jeff Reeds. Now, this is a module that really taught me that you shouldn't get too attached to your game world, that it should be okay for your player actions or your monster actions to destroy the world, or at least a part of it. So the basic premise of this is that there are these elephant, shark, centaur things, giant things, that roam around on a flying island. And so I presage this by having the players hear about them attacking instances and cities, and there were confused reports about what happened because they attack at night, they come on a flying island, and they wreak havoc, and then they go back to their island. And eventually the island reached them. And let's take a look inside. So here's a map of the island. Let's get it to focus. All right, so there's this big winch with a chain that goes down to the surface. There's a golden obelisk. There are some ruins. The big stank hole. And the Sky Fortress itself. And there's a tree and a garden. All on this big floating island cloud thing. And if you look on the inside cover, here's a map of the actual fortress. The lair of the giant shark, elephant, centaur things. Now the art is really good on here. It looks very comic bookish to me. And it's really well thought out about how to do a dungeon. There's, first of all, it's on a flying fortress. How do you get up there? And it talks about different things players might try, but the players need to come up with their own idea about how to get up there. Then there's motivation. Why are we going up there? Well, it could be you're going up there because the monsters are tearing apart your city. When I've run this a couple of times, and usually they try to go up there because the monsters are busy tearing apart the city, so they sneak up there to find out what's going on. If you don't have a campaign, here's some ideas about how to get a campaign started. Yeah, so you let the monsters tear up your game world. Here they are tearing apart the Great Wall of China. You don't get so attached to your game world that the monsters or the players can't destroy things. And here's some stats of the monsters. And each one of them is unique. So it has like a 2-page spread, a picture and a description of each of the monsters. So that you can run them. Okay, and then there's stuff you need to work out before you even run it. So, first major issue is, what's up with these giants? What are they? And there's several possibilities. It could be space aliens, angels, mutants, or shark elephants. And so it gives a 2-page thing about what are the consequences for each of these choices. If they're aliens, or angels, or mutants, or shark elephants. Another issue is, who built this crazy place and why? So the choices are Titans, angels, space gods, or real gods. And you get a 2-page description about what are the consequences if they're Titans, or angels, or space gods. I think this is my favorite picture of the whole book. It looks very much like something Jack Kirby would do. Or real gods. And in the tunnels underneath the Sky Fortress are the wretches. And so there's like a checklist to decide what's the deal with the wretches. And the decision I made was to make the wretches halflings and call them deviants and give them names from the deviants from Jack Kirby's Eternal series. But the trouble is, the map, it shows some of the entrances and some of the detail of the tunnels, but it doesn't show them all, and it's on this map. And since I'm playing in Roll20, this made it really hard to do this. So I had to make my own map. So I'm going to show that to you here. If I can get it to focus. Yeah, so here's one of the entrances where it goes into the tunnels. And see, this bit, see, part of it is on the map that comes with this, but not all of it is here, see. And here's another tunnel that goes into something that's described here. And there's more of my tunnels. Yeah, so this made for an interesting network of tunnels for my players to wander through in the lower level and end up having a player be a character from the tunnels. Alright, so let's back to so the wretches of the tunnels. And there's a description of the Skyfortress itself. So placement of the monsters and wandering monsters and events. There's some interesting artifacts in various locations. It describes each of the locations from the main map. Yeah, this is an issue between James Rocky and I think the rest of the gaming world, that he doesn't understand why people want unkeyed maps. DMs want unkeyed maps to show their players so you can put it on Roll20. So yeah, it has some locations, and there's some outdoor locations which are on the other map. Let's get to that. See, this map has keyed outdoor locations. If I can find where I am now. And there's some pictures of some of the things you might see. And there's tunnel locations. That's why I need a tunnel map. And then it goes into some stats of the monsters and advanced monster stats, because there's a different way to play giants in this, which I much prefer. That they don't have an armor class. You automatically hit them. They're too big to miss, but they have damage reduction instead of armor class. So you got to do enough damage that you could hurt them. Okay, there's some other creatures that give you visions and the wretches. Yeah, the art is just fantastic in here. So after that, the next section is stuff from his blogs, like the other half of the book. And this is why, even if you're not going to play this module, this is a great addition to any Dungeon Master's set. So, what's my motivation? Sometimes it gets hard to get the players to go into the module or the dungeon that you have planned. So here's D12 or D100 motivations. You could randomly roll them one. Okay. Next is carousing. This was a new idea when I first got this book, and now it has spread throughout the gaming world, so it's very common. But the idea basically is you roll a d6 and multiply it by 100, and that's how many gold pieces you spent on carousing, and you gain that many XPs. But you also have to make a save against poison. If you fail, you roll on the carousing table, and one of these random things could happen to you. And for higher levels, instead of a d6, you roll a d8. And there's d30 possible things. There's a section on the living dungeon. And what happens if they go back to a dungeon they've been in before? Does a new monster move in? Does the Minotaur now have a succubus lover? Does the troll have ochre jelly dripping out of its nose? They have the kobolds set some new traps? There's some random things. Then there's 20 quick questions for your campaign setting. This is for your campaign world. Questions you need to know the answer to run your world, like who's the mightiest wizard in the land, who's the greatest warrior in the land, who's the richest person, where's the nearest tavern, things like that. And he answers them for his game world to give you an example of how that works. Because, if you're going to break the game world, then you need to know what it was like before it got broken. Here's a little article about getting started with old school campaigns. If you're new to old school, even recommends Dragon's Foot. There's a little section on wandering monsters and how to do wandering monsters. And on exploration, nice little article about exploration. And here's one on morale. This is a really great article, The Awesome Power of the First Level Magic User, which I can't get it to focus on for some reason. When I started randomly rolling the starting spells level for the players, I realized that there are a lot of really useful first level spells that if you don't have them, then you're in trouble. And so this explains how certain first level spells, and not Magic Missile, are really, really useful, and a first level mage who could only cast one spell could still do a lot with one of these spells. Then there's thing on magic items. Not magic items, but on defeating the monster. You don't need just a +5 sword. There's all kind of other things you can do, which come out of the founding legends that for these games. Things like drop something big and heavy on the monster, like when Luke killed the Rancor in Return of the Jedi. Trap the monster. Shape-changing, size-changing beings can be tricked into shrinking down and entering a bottle or box. Push or trip the monster so it falls into a bottomless pit. These are all things that are cliches in the fiction that led us to want to play these games. So the players ought to be able to do that stuff. Here's a dexterity and strength alternatives for Holmes Basic, if you like that. Here's his own henchman hireling rules. Here's an article on how to awesome up your players and make the game more fun. When in doubt, let the player roll some dice. And then finally, we have the Grimoires of Wessex. Wessex is his game world, and this is something that I institute in my own games, that when you find a mage's spell book, it's not just a book with these spells. Instead, it's like a combination of diary and spell book. It's written in a particular language, and if you don't know that language, you need to comprehend language's spell to be able to read it. It has a specific author that wrote it before you got it, and it has some sort of blasphemy in it. Something that the writer believed that you will believe if you copy spells from this book. So if you repeatedly copy spells from spell books, you will accumulate some strange beliefs. Like this one is written in the 7 Demons of Magdalene, or the Book of Magdalene. It's written in ancient Greek, and it includes the blasphemy that Christ didn't cast demons out of Mary Magdalene. He taught her to invoke them. And the spells it includes are Read Magic, Summon Magic Aura, Shield, Magic Mouth, and ESP. In my games, Read Magic is a variation of Comprehend Languages that only works on spellbooks and scrolls. It's a weaker form, which you probably would not research on your own, but because you could get Comprehend Languages instead. But you might find it in a spellbook, which is cheaper than researching it from scratch. So it still persists in my games. There's 100 of these, starting with low level ones, going up to higher level ones. So 01 is Lectus Albion, the Herbal of Claudius, written in Latin by the physician scribe Scribonius Largus. And its blasphemy is Satan preserved his own desires dearest from the flood by hiding them in an underwater city off the Cornish coast. So, yeah, if you copy spells in this book, you will believe that. And so you might be avoiding the Cornish coast, or you might want to go on an underwater adventure to look for that. And it includes the spells Spider Climb, Speak with Animals, Howl of the Moon, Growth Plants, Interposing Hands, and Move Earth. So, that is Broodmother Skyfortress. A really interesting module that is suitable for any old school TSR based game.